Hello, my friends. Today, the situation at the front remains catastrophic and Russia is achieving new successes, but this update has to begin with the situation surrounding the negotiations. Ukraine is now being openly pushed toward full capitulation because Trump has set strict deadlines for signing a peace agreement. And it's important to note that Trump is pressuring Ukraine to sign the deal, not Russia, as it logically should be. The US expects Zelensky to sign the American plan to end the war by Thanksgiving. November 27 reports the Financial Times. After that, the agreement will be presented to Russia, and the entire process is expected to be completed by early December. As you can see, Ukraine has simply been presented with a fait accompli, so nothing was discussed with Ukraine. And now the most important question, what does Ukraine's capitulation look like? Friends, I can't call this a peace agreement. This is a full and unconditional surrender. Here are the points that have been proposed to Ukraine as of today. Armed forces. The Ukrainian armed forces must reduce their number to 40 or 50%, about 400,000 troops, while the Russian army will not face any reductions. Ukraine is forbidden from possessing several classes of long-range weapons, including those capable of reaching Moscow or St. Petersburg. Ukraine is banned from conducting mobilization and from receiving Western weapons shipments. Territory. Ukraine withdraws its troops from the Kyiv-controlled areas of Donbas, and these territories are transferred to Moscow's control, although they will remain demilitarized. Donetsk and Luhansk will be considered leased to Russia. The US and other countries will recognize Crimea and Donbas as Russian. Kyiv won't be required to do so, but their recognition will happen. In Zaporizhia and Kherson, the front line gets frozen. Russia may return some territories to Ukraine depending on negotiations. Politics. Ukraine is banned from joining NATO. Russian must become the second official language in Ukraine. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate must have its official status restored. Security guarantees. Western troops cannot be deployed in Ukraine. Even civilian diplomats will not be allowed to land in Ukraine on their own aircraft. The US will provide security guarantees to Ukraine and Europe, while Russia promises not to attack Ukraine. Russia's responsibility. Economic sanctions on Russia are lifted. Kyiv agrees not to pursue Moscow for war crimes. The president's office has confirmed that Zelensky received the draft plan and intends to discuss it with Trump. Earlier, European Union countries opposed the document as it would require Ukraine to make territorial concessions. In this scenario, Russia achieves most of its goals, and Ukraine effectively loses completely. There is no other way to describe it. And the White House has commented on the situation, of course.
I've seen quite a bit of reporting on the latest with Russia, Ukraine. So let me clarify and give you guys the truth on where it currently stands. President Trump has made it very clear since day one, and even on the campaign trail, that he wants to see this war come to an end. He's grown increasingly frustrated with both sides of this war, Russia and Ukraine alike, for their refusal to commit to a peace agreement. But nevertheless, the president and his national security team are steadfast in seeing this war come to an end, to end the killing and deliver on the president's promise. Special Envoy Witkoff, Marco Rubio, have been working on a plan quietly for about the last month. They've been engaging with both sides, Russia and Ukraine, equally to understand what these countries would commit to in order to see a lasting and durable peace. That's how you get to a peace negotiation, right? That's how it worked with Israel, with respect to Israel and Gaza and all of the Arab countries in the Middle East. That's how we accomplished that historic agreement, which the UN, by the way, voted to commit to and accept this week, which was a huge monumental moment. So they have been engaged with both sides, and these talks are continuing. As always, I'm not going to litigate the details of this plan as it's ongoing and it's in flux, but the president supports this plan. It's a good plan for both Russia and Ukraine, and we believe that it should be acceptable to both sides, and we're working very hard to get it done. And I'll also add, I know Secretary Driscoll did meet with President Zelenskyy today. We spoke with him. He was very optimistic following that meeting. And so, again, we are having good conversations with both sides with respect to ending this war.
As we can see, they believe this plan is beneficial for Ukraine, but that depends on how you look at it. Friends, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. And Zelenskyy has officially responded to the US peace proposal.
Today I had a meeting with representatives of the United States, a significant delegation, and a very serious conversation. The American side presented its proposals, points of a plan to end the war, their vision. Since the first days of the war, we have held one extremely simple position: Ukraine needs peace, real peace. One that cannot be broken by a third invasion. A dignified peace that respects our independence, our sovereignty, and the dignity of the Ukrainian people. And we must secure exactly those conditions. I outlined what is fundamental for us, and we agreed that our teams will work on these proposals to ensure they are genuine. We will not make any abrupt statements and remain focused on clear and honest work for Ukraine, the United States, and our friends and partners in Europe and around the world. These days, there have been many conversations with European leaders, many messages exchanged. I thank all friends of Ukraine for their support. Today I spoke with the President of Finland, Stubb. We are coordinating our efforts, and we are in constant contact with other leaders, including the President of France. I expect to speak with President Trump in the coming days. We understand that America's strength and America's support can bring real peace closer. We do not want to lose that. We also understand that Russia has no real desire for peace. Otherwise, they would never have started this war.
Stefanishina has also commented on the situation. This is the beginning of a good process. I feel very positive because I believe in Ukraine, Stefanishina said about the peace plan. Ukraine's ambassador to the US emphasized that there is nothing new in the plan itself. Moscow is simply repeating its old demands. Despite this, Ukraine views the very fact of an American initiative positively. Ukraine is ready to work on ideas that could lead to a just end to the war and sees Washington's actions as the serious beginning of a new diplomatic process, Stefanishina said. Ukrainians continue to die, families continue to suffer losses, and if we finally have leadership from the President of the United States and that leadership is backed by a real process, I believe that is significant. So we are optimistic because we don't doubt ourselves and are ready to do everything possible to support President Trump's efforts to end the war. Overall, she is pleased simply because negotiations have begun again. But in reality, this is not a peace plan. It's a capitulation, the very outcome Russia has dreamed about for the entire war. So now we wait to see how events unfold. And now let's listen to what Putin himself says about all this.
Under the pretext of the need to continue the war with Russia, they keep this government in Ukraine in power for the sake of personal enrichment. This has now become well known thanks to anti-corruption investigations inside Ukraine itself. And I think it's clear to everyone that these people, sitting on their golden toilets, are hardly thinking about their country's fate, about the fate of ordinary people in Ukraine, officers, and especially ordinary soldiers. We have our own tasks, our own goals. The main one is the unconditional achievement of the objectives of the special military operation and meeting the tasks set before us by our homeland and the people of Russia. The people of Russia are counting on you, relying on you, and expecting the result our country needs. Let's begin.
As we can see, He's not talking about stopping the war or leaving parts of Kherson or Zaporizhia alone. On the contrary, they openly state that they will continue moving toward their goal. And we know that their declared goal includes 4 regions with the claimed borders, and that's the minimum because today they have already entered Dnipropetrovsk region, and Ukraine continues to lose territory in Kharkiv region. And when you put all of this together, it turns out that Russia is effectively seizing 6 Ukrainian regions, not counting Sumy region. Meanwhile, new details have emerged regarding Yermak's resignation. Zelensky held a meeting with members of the Servant of the People faction, during which he made it clear that Andriy Yermak will not be dismissed. Zelensky said that personal decisions in the president's office are the president's responsibility, and he made it clear that Yermak will not be removed. One participant of the meeting said. They also discussed appointing replacement for the ministers who were dismissed after the Mindigate scandal. The president advises MPs to propose candidates to Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko. So feel free, friends, to share your thoughts about this in the comments. And here is what J.D. Vance suggested that Ukraine and Russia should trade with each other instead of fighting.
To save lives, he also sees a world where people are engaging in commerce with one another rather than killing one another. And he just, he's a tough guy, but he's not a violent human. Like he's not a person, who I think understands violence at a sort of fundamental level. It's like, why don't you stop killing each other and start trading with one another? Why, rather than Russia and Ukraine killing one another, why don't they actually engage in some commerce with one another, travel between the two countries, engage in some sort of cultural exchange? That is his fundamental perspective that he takes into these things. And fundamentally, if we get more peace in the world, it's good for American workers, it's good for the American people, and the president's going to keep on pursuing peace. He's done very well so far, but he's going to keep on working at it.
Now, let's move on to the situation along the front line, starting with the Sumy direction. Things are quiet here for now. This may be connected to the negotiations and the Kremlin's hope that Ukraine will sign a capitulation agreement. But at the moment, the Russians are not spending their resources here, and the situation remains unchanged. In Vovchansk, the fighting continues. The Russians are trying to fully capture the city, and they only need to advance about 4 more kilometers to occupy it completely. However, there have been no new changes over the past day, and the battles are ongoing. In the Velika Burluk direction, the Russians continue trying to push toward Kolodezne, but so far they haven't achieved any gains over the past day, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kupiansk direction, despite having zero success in the city itself, the Russians have begun claiming that the city is encircled. But that's completely false. Their forces continue to take heavy losses here, and they are unable to advance into the southern part of the city. Meanwhile, fighting continues for Petropavlivka, Novoosinovo, and they're trying to break through past Pishani. But again, there have been no changes over the past day. In the Borova direction, the Russians have managed to move closer to Shaykivka, and they are already launching assaults on the village. They're also pushing forward from Raihorodka. As a result, even here, the situation along the front line has slightly worsened. In the Liman direction, the situation is simply catastrophic. Russian forces have already reached the outskirts of Liman, which is their main objective in this sector. Here is what Ukrainian soldiers are reporting today. Liman direction. The Russians have begun to infiltrate the city. It's still hard to say whether they have established positions directly inside Liman, but the fact remains they are getting in. Assaults toward the city continue, and the Russians are also storming Зарічне, Ставки, Дробишево, Novoselivka, Oleksandrivka, Novomykhailivka, and pushing in the areas of Shandrigolove and Karpivka. As we can see, the intensity of offensive actions here is not decreasing, and the Russians clearly intend to keep advancing. In the Siversk direction, there has also been a major setback. The Russians have advanced further into the city and have closed in onto the village of Zahitne. At the same time, assaults continue in Yampil, Dronivka, and fighting is ongoing in Siversk, around Vyemka, Fedorivka, and Vasyukivka. This region here remains tense. In the Kramatorsk direction, the Russians are also pushing further. They have reached close to Vorolyubivka and advancing toward the Kramatorsk Regional Landscape Park, and are also assaulting Minkivka. So Kramatorsk itself is now just 11 kilometers from the ongoing fighting. In the Kostiantynivka direction, the Russians are advancing beyond Chasiv Yar, assaulting Stupachki, the outskirts of Kostiantynivka, Pleshiyivka, Klebanbyk, Stepanivka, and pushing through Rusin Yar. For now, there are no major changes here. In the Dobropilny direction, the Russians are assaulting Suvorove, Нове Шахове, Шахове, Pankivka, and Sofiyivka. The activity remains high, and as before, Russian supply routes haven't been successfully cut off. They are bringing in reinforcements and continuing their attacks. In the Pokrovsk direction, the situation remains catastrophic. The only corridor for retreat is roughly 1 kilometer and 800 meters wide. This is without considering the gray zone. Meanwhile, the Russians are assaulting Grishine and are trying to further narrow this corridor near Mirnograd. They are also assaulting Rivne and pushing into the Mirnograd area. Meanwhile, Gerasimov reportedly told Putin that all conditions have allegedly been created for the Ukrainian forces to surrender.
Comrade Commander-in-Chief, these conditions have been created. Considering their hopeless position, of course, many servicemen may decide to surrender. But most of them, under the threat of execution or being destroyed by drones, even their own, cannot carry out this task. At the same time, Ukraine's political leadership gives no instructions to their troops on this matter.
In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians continue their assaults in the city, but so far they haven't been able to push Ukrainian forces back. They're also attacking Dachne, but there have been no new gains along the front line over the past 24 hours. In the direction of Pokrovsky, Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians are assaulting Alexandrograd and Sosnivka and are breaking through in the areas of Vorone, Oleksiyevka, and Yegorivka. Shelling continues, and the Russians are preparing to advance further, as the attacks remain intense and offensive activity shows no signs of slowing down. In the Gulay-Pole direction, and the Russians have once again made significant advances, and the city now appears to be half surrounded. They're also assaulting the village of Zelene, to continue the encirclement and breaking through directly to the city across the river. Additionally, fighting is ongoing in Zelenskyy, and the situation remains catastrophic. In the Zaporizhia direction, the Russians have also increased their activity, attacking Novoandriivka, Stepove, and Primorske. They continue to carry out heavy shelling, but there have been no new gains along the front line over the past 24 hours. While shelling of Zaporizhia itself has intensified, last night the Russians again struck the city. In the Kherson direction, there have been no changes so far, and no new assaults have been reported. So, unfortunately, we often see that the Russians are striking residential buildings. In addition, it has been revealed that there have also been attacks on Ukrainian factories. Information has emerged suggesting that the strikes on Ternopil could have been linked to a video posted by MP Fedorenko, member of parliament from the Servant of the People faction, Alexander Fedorenko, who is also a member of the National Security Committee, published a video on YouTube revealing information about the location where our electronic warfare equipment is produced. He names the city and the factory. Later in this day, 26 people, including children, were killed, and the fate of another 22 remains unknown. This is what happened in Ternopil. Here is a clip from this video.
Abalonic, but I will focus as much as possible on those companies, on those booths, that showcased solutions for electronic warfare. Thank you. They reduced the price by 10,000 Ukrainian hryvnias. So, we are at the Ternopil radio factory, Arian. This is reliable. By the way, communication equipment Tapik. They say it costs 10,000. So, for those interested, it's produced in Ternopil.
He, of course, justifies himself and says it's not because of him. In general, who is to blame now doesn't really matter. Neither the people nor the factory can be restored. And friends, I also want to ask everyone to support these videos with likes and shares. YouTube today doesn't favor promoting political content. YouTube is more interested in entertainment programs. That's why updates on the frontline and politics appear less and less in recommendations. So only you can help promote this content through reposts and sharing via Telegram channels. So if you care, make sure to like and share this video wherever you can. And that's all from me. So see you next time. Bye bye.